Dear students, dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. In this module of Basic of Experimental Design, I will give you the brief introduction about design and analysis of experiment. In this module, we will first discuss about the applications of experimental design in real life. After that, I will discuss about how we can apply these design in different fields and how to apply this design, that means step by step construction method of design of experiment and using statistical techniques in design of experiment. Let's get started. Our main objective is to give an introduction to basic principle of experimental design. We will discuss three basic principles of design in detail due to its importance, and it has wide application in different areas like agriculture, social science, service sector, biology and manufacturing. In statistics, data have a vital role and it is essential to have a clear plan or strategy while the collection and analysis of the data. The strategy that is used to take care of this motive is known as statistical design. That includes plans starting from the objective till the conclusion. In practical life, one is interested to make an inference from the experiments, as conducting experiments will help you to understand or give suggestions for improving the system, whether conducted in the lab or in open fields. For example, experiments are conducted in the lab in a controlled environment, and some experiments are conducted in the open and uncontrolled environment like agriculture field. The theory and method that are used to take care of experiments are termed as experimental design. It is considered as a collection of techniques and methods that help the experimenter while conducting an experiment in terms of how to minimize cost, how to choose units and which model is more appropriate for the given objective, how to analyze the data and draw conclusions. In general, our main interest is to understand the system or process in detail during its operational phase and try to see the cause and effect relationship. For that, we either change the input variable or conduct the same experiment in different situations. This will lead to make statements or theories about the system. The main objective of these experiments is to determine that these theories or statements are statistically significant or not. Generally, experiments are conducted as a criteria for testing or series of repeating the same technique or method to see the changes that can be observed in the output values due to change in the input variables. So our main interest is to find out those factors or variables that are responsible for this significant change in the output responses, as well as developing a model for the response variable with the significant input factors. After that, this model can be used for making an improvement in the system, making a further decision and forecasting the future value of the system for a given input factor values. Experiments have a wide application in different areas like sciences, industries, etc. There are many situations where the scientific laws can be applied in an effective manner, that one can develop mathematics relationship between the factors and can check its significance further using statistical techniques. By just understanding these scientific laws in science and production, we have units available, and experiments help to understand how the process works. So it is important to choose an appropriate experiment techniques, because that will lead to the conclusion about the system. As the conclusion be drawn as a stepwise procedure, first we have to select the units or factor that are of interest to us. After that, statistical methods are used for collecting the information. Then analysis, and at last give the conclusion about the objective. In general, process is considered as a collection of different resources like input factors and output responses. In production sector, input factors are people, raw material and other things that are essential at the initial stage to start the process. On the other hand, output responses are those that one can receive at the final stage. It is possible that some of the input factors or variables properties are controllable or assignable. Controllable means that variables properties can be modified as per the requirement, whereas some variable properties are uncontrollable or non-assignable. The purpose of conducting experiment may include the following things. First is to find out the most influential variable on the response variable. Second is to see the impact of the influential variable on the response variable value. Third is to check whether with a small change in the influential variable that will lead to significant change in the response variable. And fourth is to see how to minimize the effect of uncontrollable values on the response variables. Hence, we can observe that in experiment we have different factors, and the objective of the conducting experiment is to find out the influential factors on the response variable of the system. The whole process of conducting experiment and planning is termed as experiment strategy. So it may be possible that experiment can change the strategy with time or due to structural change. In most of the area, it is considered that one should start with a simple strategy first and then move to complex one. So now we will discuss about applications of experimental design. In general, we understand the process in a series of experiments and we make assumptions about the process while collecting the data and come to conclusion after statistical analysis. Based on the conclusion, we establish new assumptions that will lead to new experiments and so on. Hence, the process of experimentation keeps on repeating itself with the passage of time. The use of experimental design in the process will lead to an improvement in the process outcome, and second is it reduces the variability among the response variable. It also reduces the overall cost and it also reduces the time period for developing. Also, the experimentation will help to understand the comparison between the different alternatives available for the process in terms of raw material, machine, human resource, etc. The experimentation will also help to understand the relationship between the factors that will help to see the output variables characteristics. For example, one can check the robustness of the product with the change in the environmental conditions or input variable in manufacturing industry. This will help the experimenter to make a conclusion about the quality of the product before make it approachable to the end user. Experimentation will also help in determining the key parameter as well in the formulation of the new product. Hence, the use of experimentation or experimental design will help in selecting the products that are easier to manufacture and reliable, optimized, minimum production cost, short development time, and easy product design. Due to the extensive application of experimental design in service industry, manufacturing sectors, software developments, and market research, it is essential for all nowadays to have some knowledge of this topic. Now, we will give you a brief about the basic principles of design of experiment. It is very important that one should know the basic principle in depth so that we can apply these principles in our practical life. Design of experiment is a procedure of planning about how to conduct an experiment, how and which method will be used to collect the data, and after that analyze it. That would bring the conclusion for the objective. It is essential to use statistical method to draw meaningful conclusion from the data. It is more appropriate method to use when we have the possibility of experimental error exist in the data. Hence, we have the two aspects of the experimental problem. First is how to design the experiment, and second one is its statistical analysis for valid conclusions. These two aspects affect each other in an indirect manner. So, to understand the relationship in more depth, one has to understand the basic principle of design of experiment. These are: first is randomization, second is replication, and third is local control or blocking. We will explain the principles of design of experiment in detail as given below. As first is randomization. It is considered as the initial stage of implementing the statistical techniques in the experimental design. Randomization means how we allocate the experimental material to the units and how to repeat the run of the experiment. Both of these things are done in a random manner. Hence, this principle is essential for removing any biasness that may occur while the allocation of the material to the units or from the repetition of the experiment, as statistical method require the observations to be independently distributed. Basically, here the observation generally means error to be independently distributed. The purpose of the randomization is to remove the effect of extraneous factors that may exist. For example, there is a difference in the quality of the product. There are many possibilities whether the difference occur due to difference in the raw material or due to machine operators. If we assign the different raw materials to different operator randomly, then we can eliminate the effect of extraneous factor. Nowadays, programming languages are widely used to assist the experimenter in selecting and choosing experimental design. With the help of programming, one can see the runs of experiment in random manner, and this is possible through random number generation techniques. Sometimes it is difficult for the experimenter to assign the material to the units in a random manner due to some constraints like location problem, difference in experience level among the operators, etc. So it is not possible to do complete randomization in some situation because that would increase time and cost. In statistics, there are many methods available that can tackle this type of problem and will give you the optimized results. And the second principle of design of experiment is replication. It means an independent repetition of run for each factor combination. For example, if we have 5 treatment and 5 units of land, if we want to test the productivity of the crop with the type of seed, then we have to assign each seed to one unit in random manner. Now, we also have to repeat the process further so that each unit of land will get each variety of seed at least one time. Hence, the process of repeating the experiment more than one time to get better understanding of the system is called replication. Replication has further 2 important characteristics. First, it helps the experimenter in estimating the experimental error. This error will help in determining whether the variation in the observations are statistically different or not. Second is, it helps in estimating the parameters of the model in a precise manner. For example, sample mean is used to estimate the population mean. Sometimes person consider the term repeated measurement as a synonym of replication, but both have different meanings. Repeated measurement term is basically used to refer to those cases where some some operations are conducted repeated on a same unit, but in replication we repeat the experiment such that each unit will get in contact with different factors on every run. Hence, replication not only reflects the source of variability among the responses within runs, but also reflect the variability between runs. Now, we will discuss the third basic principle of design of experiment. It is called blocking, or it is also called local control. It is a third principle of design of experiment that is basically used to enhance the precision that will help to compare the factors of interest are done. Basically, blocking is used to remove the effect of extraneous factors. These factors may influence the response variables, but not in the direct manner. For example, in a field experiment of testing the quality of different variety of seeds, then it may be possible that we cannot differentiate between the yield of crop due to different seeds, because the difference in the yield may occur due to difference in the fertility of the land. So we have to take account of this factor while comparing the different variety of seeds in terms of yield of the crop. Hence, generally block is considered as a set of relatively homogeneous units like field that has same fertility can be considered as a block, and other field that have fertility different from the previous one will be another block. It is also observed that there is less variability within the element in a block than the variability between the blocks. Now we will discuss the next section, that is steps for the construction of experimental design. Before the construction of experimental design, it is essential for the experimenter to have a clear idea about the objective in advance. What is our objective, how to collect the data, and how to do analysis of this data. In this section we will discuss about this thing in steps, and these are the steps given below. The first step is first to recognize the problem. It is essential to first understand the problem and make a valid statement about the objective. It may seem a very simple task at first approach, but it is not, as it requires a lot of brainstorming sessions to develop a clear objective of the experiment. Sometimes it is essential to take input from all the concerned specialized person about the system, like engineer, marketing management, customer, and operators. Hence, for designing the experiment, the collective efforts of the group is required. It is helpful if we prepare a list of questions and problems that are raised by the experimenter. The clear statement about the objective will help for better understanding of the system and the solution to the problem. It is also essential to keep the overall objective in mind while performing an experiment. There are many reasons for conducting the experiments, and each experiment will generate its own series of questions. Reasons for conducting experiments are given as the first is the main objective of conducting an experiment is to determine or find out the major factors that have the most influential effect on the response variable. The process of finding the factors that are important is called factor screening. After determining the factors, then the next step is to determine the optimal stage or level that will give you the optimal values of the response. For example, while experimentation of the yield of the crop, it is determined that quality of seeds, fertility of land, and fertilizers used are the main factor. Then the next stage is to find the optimum combination of all of these to get the best results in terms of increased profit or minimized cost. The third step is, now after determining the levels of the factor, the experimenter is trying to verify that the system operates in the same manner as previously, or there are some changes in the structure of the system with time. It may also happen that experiments are trying to apply new resources to see their impact on the system. For example, in manufacturing, experiments are conducted with new resources that increase the quality as well as the reliability of the response. Experimentation of this type will increase the demand of the product and overall profit. The experimentation will also help to test the robustness of the response variable, under what condition the value of the response variable will deviate from the target variable. The second step is, as we have already determined the factor, those are the most influential for the response variable. Now the next step is to select the response variable. The experimenter should be certain about the response variable that will give the useful information about the system under study. After identifying the factors, the next important task is to categorize these factors into design factors, factors that are constant and factors that can vary. The design factors are those factors that are selected for study in the experiment. Constant factors have no direct impact for the current experiment but can affect the system in future. Varying factors are those factors that have property of inhomogeneous among them. For example, the experimental units of materials are not completely homogeneous. By using the principle of randomization, one can reduce the effect of this type of variability on the response variable. There are many other factors that have major influences on the response variable. These factors are called nuisance factors. Nuisance factors are classified as controllable and uncontrollable. Controllable nuisance Controllable nuisance factors are those whose factors levels are set by the experimenter. On the other hand, if the factors are uncontrollable but still measurable, then the procedure that is used for analysis is called analysis of covariance. Now the next step is, if we are able to categorize our factors, then the next step is to choose the design according to the objective. It involves determination of the sample size as well as number of replicates, determination of whether to involve blocking or not in the design. There are many statistical software available that will help to fit the design, the model on the data based on the information in terms of number of factors and their level software. And these software will recommend a particular model. It is also possible that one can compare between models based on the coefficient of determination as well as to give some diagnostic information about the performance of the model. This will help the experimenter to determine the suitable model for the objective. One can start from the very simple model and add the factors variables in the model based on the requirement of the objective and attains the optimal model. And now the next step is, the most important phase of designing experiment is the running stage of the experiment. It is important that process should perform according to the plan. If the process is not working about the plan, then it will bring serious consequences like wastage of material, time, human resources, etc. So it is suggested that one should perform some pilot study or runs before implementing the experiment on the large scale. These runs will help to know about the consistency of the experimental design. If it is not working properly, then there is a need to cross-check all the previous stage and again do pilot study. After running the experiment, the next step is to collect the data to apply statistical method on them. There are many software available that will help to assist in analysis. Descriptive statistics play an important role in data analysis at initial stage, but most the studies require method of inferential statistics like estimation of variable, coefficient, hypothesis testing, and confidence interval. Residual analysis and model adequacy checking are among the major analysis techniques. After analysis the data using the appropriate statistical method, the next stage is to provide an appropriate conclusion about the result. One can also get the validity of the conclusion by performing confirmation testing. Now, in this section we will discuss how to use statistical technique in experimentation. The basic purpose of the use of statistical technique in experimentation is to increase the efficiency of these experiments and to provide a valid conclusion. The following points should be kept in mind by the experimenter while applying the statistical techniques. The most important thing that the experimenter should have a strong knowledge in their field, as this knowledge will help in determining the factors that are most influential for the response variable and also in the designing of the model. Second important thing that the experimenter should keep in mind that one should start with simple statistical techniques and keep the design as simple as possible, as for a simple and reasonable design the analysis will be very simple and it is easy to provide its interpretation. There are situations when there is a strong need to interpret the statistical results according to practical situation. For example, if there is a statistical significance difference in the yield of crop by using two equality of seeds, then one should consider the significant difference in terms of other factors like cost of production, new seed than the old one, as well as the total benefit that one will receive while using the new one. If the total profit that one will earn is negligible, then however there is a significant difference in terms of statistics, but in practical cases there is no difference. It is possible that to draw a valid conclusion about the system, one has to repeat the experimentation many times, as each experiment collects some information, so one can use this information to get the better results in further experiments. At the end, I would like to summarize this module. In this module we discuss what is the application of experimental design in different sectors like environmental sciences, biosciences, etc. We also discuss the three basic principles of experimental design. These principles are randomization, replication, and blocking or local control. As we already see that randomization means how we can allocate the experiment randomly. Replications mean how we repeat the process so that we get we can allot random units to random treatments. And third, blocking, that is basically used for homogeneity of the experimental units. After that we will discuss that how we can find step-by-step approach for using this technique in our practical life, as well as how we use statistical techniques in design of experiment. So this is basically a theoretical module. So application part of this module will be discussed in the further modules. Hope you enjoy it. Thank you.